call in.
Yeah, I did too. I was looking at my phone to see if maybe she was. She said that she felt like it. She was.
Good evening. I can stand for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank all the veterans and their families and the sacrifices you've made. Okay, everybody on the council has been given a finance report, a police department report. Jordan has quite frankly been too busy with the guys to put a report in, so basically it's business as usual for that department. Several water taps, several water breaks, and the day-to-day keeping up with the grass and the garbage. So, moving into the public hearing, we need a motion to go into public hearing. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
A motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion. Second. All those in favor? Okay. Councilwoman Kraus was not able to make it this evening. So, number one is tax year 2022 millage rate. The city of Statham has tentatively adopted a millage rate which will require an increase in property tax for 2022 tax year. The city of Statham anticipates the property tax levy will be set at 4.003 mils, which is a 19.92 increase from the proposed rollback rate of 3.338. The tax report from the city's finance department is available on the city's website or may be obtained by contacting Statham City Hall. This rate is the same as last year's rate. However, if they recommend a rollback and the city stays with where they're currently at, then effectively it looks like tax increased. Is there any questions from council members on respect to millage rate? Need any explanations or concerns?
I would, Mayor, I would just like an explanation of what is driving the increase of the 19%.
Well, that's a good question. In the reports that I provided to Mayor and Council last week, and I have some copies up here available for anybody in the public, this has also been posted on the website for the last couple of weeks, and it was also noted on our social media page if anybody would like to obtain a copy. It is a citizen's copy of our tax year 2022. It provides a lot of explanation, what rollback rate means, how your property taxes are configured. But essentially, a rollback rate means the rate which minus new construction or annexation would generate the same amount as the previous year's property taxes. When it's always hard to configure what a potential millage rate is going to be for the upcoming year, because when we are planning our budget, we don't have the property tax digest yet, which is provided by Barrow County. And actually, the tax digest that I did receive is actually a preliminary. It's not even their official one. So the rollback rate could potentially change based on their finalized numbers of the tax digest. But essentially, throughout the course of the year, the tax assessor's office really goes around throughout each municipality, throughout the county, and they look for new construction. They look for new construction, residential, commercial, to include empty tracts of land that might have only been cleared. So maybe there's a potential for development, but there isn't anything there quite yet. So they do this throughout the year, and they evaluate everybody's property, personal property, and real property as well, and based on what it looks like at the time that they are evaluating it. So we've all experienced our property values significantly increasing over the last couple of years. I would like to point out that the tax digest that we received for tax year 2022 is actually a year prior's evaluation. So they're always kind of a year behind on assessing property values. So you can look for the same type, I guess my opinion is that you can look for the same type of property values next year as we're seeing this year. And that's simply because tax digest evaluations are done for the year prior for the year that we're going to be paying on. I know it's confusing, but I don't make it. So when we're working on the budget, we have to assume the number of dollars that we are needing to balance our budget. And this year, we budgeted to receive $305,000 in property tax revenue. So in order for us to balance the budget, that is what we came up with. And if you remember during the budget process, I had let everybody know that amount of revenue that was needed for the city to balance the budget was under the assumption that we would stick with the same millage rate that we've actually had for the last 2 years. This will be the 3rd year in a row. You may recall back in, let me see, and it's actually in this report, but you may recall people who have lived here for quite a few years, but back in 2015, 16, 17, the millage rate back then was over 5 mils. I think at one point it was even like 5.34 or 5.5 mils. So it was actually a lot, but of course the property values weren't as near as much as what they are now. So the city needed to increase the property taxes then to make up the revenue that was needed to balance the budget back then. We're essentially doing the same thing. So, in the tax year report too that I created for the citizens, it also gives a breakdown of what the property taxes are used for. And I would like to point out that we're taking care of a lot of things departmental-wide that we haven't been able to take care of in quite some time. Like we're providing the police department with newer and updated equipment, safer equipment, something that provides them more safety, something like ammunition. I mean, the ammunition that the police department had for the last decade, was 10 years old. So a lot of the purchases that we're making now, which is reflected in the budget, the overall budget amount, they're high. I mean, there are a lot of expensive purchases that we're making, but it's all because we really need these items for the department. The new interceptors, we were driving around Ford Tauruses and Crown Vics. Our police department needed updated and safer equipment, not just for the citizens, but for our officers as well. So I guess my recommendation is to stick with the 4.003 millage rate, not only because that's what we configured to balance our budget, but because we're still making some of these same types of purchases, bettering the department, bettering the city, and moving the city forward in a direction that I believe we all like to see the city move into. Now, the increase, the 19.92%, it seems high, and I understand that. And the reason why it seems so high is solely reflected on the rollback rate. So also in the tax year 2022 report is a form that's called a PT 32.1. and that is how I configure the millage rate, which also gives me the rollback rate as well as what the increase is going to be off of the rollback rate. So it's a lot of math, a lot of formulas, a lot of configuring. The tax digest, I'm basically taking the information that the county tells me that the city of Statham properties are worth overall, and I'm entering that information that is provided to me into the PT 32.1 form, and I just calculate the dollar amount that way. I also have in the report what kind of an average increase would be to the property owner.
You there?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're trying to get Debbie.
I'll let you mute, and I'll put you up here. Hopefully we won't lose you again.
You may have noticed, I did advertise it in the paper, so I don't know if anybody has seen the property tax increase notification in the paper. It's a huge ad, it's about this big. It was in last week's edition of Bear News Journal, and it is in this week's edition of Bear News Journal. But it does have in there what an average increase in property tax would be for a home that is valued at $300,000 or $200,000. So all of that is, we are legally responsible to let the citizens know, not only of the tax increase, but of any potential increase that they may be imposed with.
So basically what I'm looking at right here, the fair market value of $300,000, increase would be around $79.80, which would be about $6 a month.
Correct. Did anybody else have any other questions?
No, I'm fine with, leaving the millage rate at 4.003 that we had for the past 2 years.
Mayor, it's not really a tax increase. It's a home value increase, which causes that to go up.
That's correct. I mean, that's what I was
Essentially,
saying, that
So maybe it sounds like that we, the city, have increased the taxes, not true.
No, it's
The
actually,
home value has gone up,
right, and
so
they're,
that needs to be stressed.
yeah, and they're recommending a rollback, and if we don't roll back, then it essentially looks like an increase.
And April did go over that, the home increase, that's driving.
Thank you.
were there any,
Any other questions on the millage rate?
I didn't know if there were any from the citizens, any citizens or public input about the millage rate from the citizens, with this being a public hearing?
5 minutes?
If anybody has any questions between, now or after this meeting, or any time even before the next meeting, which is when the millage rate will be set by the council, I encourage you to, I have some tax reports here, if anybody would like to have a copy, but I'll be more than happy to meet with anybody, kind of help you through it, answer any questions you may have. I believe Mr. Torelli and I sat last year and we went over, we had like a little budget class, and of course, he and I were the only ones there, but we went over how a millage rate property taxes are assessed and how we get to these numbers. And I'd be more than happy to do that again with any citizen that would like that information. It's good information to understand, if anything at all.
As a matter of fact, this is still on our YouTube. You can look it up. We recorded the whole class. It's very informative. But anyone in the audience would want to speak on the millage at this point? For or against? No?
Did anybody want a copy of this? And, Mayor, I would like to just ask if I could please be excused, if there weren't any comments or questions from any citizens.
Yes. Appreciate you staying for that. I know you have other obligations.
My son has a football game in 15 minutes, I'm gonna try to get back to work.
Thank you.
Okay. So, second item on the agenda is the alcohol license application. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this name, I apologize. So, Amo, Jose, okay. Enterprises LLC, owner and applicant. Amal has applied for a City of Statham alcohol beverage license for beer and wine retail package located at 2059 Atlanta Highway Southeast, Statham, Georgia 30666. Map and parcel number is ST06A 099, also known as Statham Food Mart. This location has a current business and alcohol beverage license for beer and wine. However, a change in ownership has prompted a new alcohol beverage license application per the city's alcohol ordinance. Would you care to speak? You have 5 minutes on this, or is it 10 for?
It's 10 for special zoning hearing.
You're welcome to state your name. You step up here and address the council. And
Right here, sir. Let's right here. Turn on.
your name and where you live.
Ahmed Joseph. My name is, first name is Ahmed, second name is Jose.
Okay.
I live in apartment 100 Mason Drive apartment.
And you're applying for
The
a
phone.
new alcohol license.
Yes.
Okay. Are you a resident of the city of Statham?
No, I have Dinga.
Okay. There is a stipulation in the ordinance. Would you care to explain that, Counselor?
Sure, the alcohol ordinance has a provision that requires, that any license holder, has to be a resident of the city of Statham, or if it's a business, there must be an employee or a representative resident of the city of Statham designated, for that license holder. So, it's a requirement of any application that such a person be identified, as the individual responsible, in the event of some kind of violation of the alcohol regulations. So that is a requirement in the code. Well, I don't understand, but I'm just simply saying that the application is, there's somebody that is supposed to be designated, as an individual responsible for ensuring compliance, and that person has to be listed on the face of the application.
You live in Athens?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would have to have a designated individual that would be stated on this application to meet the criteria of the Statham ordinances. So that's what the counselor has just explained. So to make sure that they are compliant with all regulations. Is there any questions or concerns you have for council members? Any questions? Okay. Would you be able to have a designated individual?
Like if someone works from here, didn't understand the things. The residents, some agree from the city of Statham.
They have to live, they have to be a resident here in the city of Statham. And if you have any other questions, you can always come up to City Hall and, discuss it. And help you make sure we have everything in place before the voting session would take place 12 days from today.
Hey, Mayor, you want to, I really don't understand everything.
No.
I think, Mayor, unless there's other public comment on the application, I recommend that we just have a meeting with the applicant sometime this next week and go over what is required and see if we can bridge the communication gap.
Yeah.
Mayor, I do have a question with the time, I don't know when it's appropriate.
No, that'd be best, because there's not going to be another public hearing on it.
Councilmember Prowse brought this to my attention. On page 4 of the application, there's a question that says, do you understand that any false statement or answer made by any applicant will subject the offender to prosecution and will be grounds for revoking the license granted or renewed? That was checked as no. And it may have just been a language issue, a barrier there, possibly, I guess. But I just wanted to bring that up to the attention.
That's something we can address at the meeting, and the revised application needs to be submitted. We can do that.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Counselor, can that stipulation be waived? Because my question is, how many people that own stores like that around the city actually
Yeah.
inside the city and or have a designated agent inside the city?
Here's what I'll say. Prior issuance of licenses, we'd have to analyze them on a case-by-case basis, but they do not serve as any kind of precedent or any kind of waiver of an ordinance. An ordinance says what it says. Whether we are allowed to grant a waiver of that is not something that I have researched. I'd have to look into it.
Okay.
Alcohol ordinances, generally speaking, are not like zoning ordinances. Zoning ordinances, you're allowed to grant variances, and there's very specific parameters where you can do so. Ordinances, by contrast, typically are not allowed to waive, and if there is a waiver, there's a special set of rules laid out. A great example is what we're about to talk about, distance, rules about, within a certain distance of a school, church, or other restricted location. There is a process built into our rules that allows a waiver of that requirement. I am not aware of any such waiver process for that residency requirement, but I will certainly look into it before our meeting.
Okay.
We'll do whatever we can to try to help the applicant solve the problem.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is alcoholic beverage license distance waiver permit. The Heated Max Grill applicant has applied for a City of Statham alcohol beverage license distance waiver permit for beer, wine, and distilled spirits located 1916 Railroad Street, Statham, Georgia 30666. This location has a current business license and alcohol beverage license for beer, wine, and distilled spirits by the drink. They approached me, and I copied everybody with the little letter that the church said that they would be okay with them serving alcohol after, I believe it was 1 o'clock on Sundays. Up to that time, that was forbidden, and that was part of the original agreement that they had with the church, and that was the basis that the alcohol license was granted by the city council. They're asking for this waiver, and this is what Councilor can explain in more detail if anyone requires.
Yeah, this is one that they had a handwritten note that they were given permission serve alcohol on Sunday.
So, yeah, our code of ordinances restricts the time, in which alcohol sales can take place and distance relative to places of worship, schools. This, Fajita Mex Grill would be subject to that, but there was a letter received from the, church, I believe, that stated they were okay with it and in support of the waiver application. And like I said in the previous matter, our code does allow the city council to grant waivers of that requirement on application and the fee and approval by the council.
Does anyone have any questions in reference to that? Any public input, one way or the other? Okay, and I believe those are all the public hearing items. So I would need a motion to go out of public hearing.
Motion for the public hearing.
Ms. Hattie, seconded. All those in favor? Okay. Next on the agenda is a discussion item which was talked about previously, and it was tabled at the July 19, 2022 regular meeting. This is a leave type and approve a change to the city's employee benefit type in the personnel policy handbook and implement a new paid time off, PTO, accrual system and cancel the current vacation time and sick time policy. The new policy will go into effect January 1 of 2023 to minimize any benefit conversion loss from the former vacation policy to the PTO policy. Employees whose converted PTO balance are in excess of their longevity cap on the effective date of this policy will be able to retain the excess amount and use down excess time through June 30, 2023. On July 1, 2023, any excess time will be paid to the employee. To benefit those employees who did not abundantly use their accrued sick time, employees with accrued sick leave hours between a minimum of 96 and a maximum of 144 hours from the prior sick leave policy may convert those unused sick hours into PTO hours on the effective date of this policy. Employees will be able to retain the excess amount and use down this excess amount through June 30, 2023. And on July 1, 2023, all excess time will be paid directly to the employee. Should an employee terminate their employment for any reason prior to July 1, 2023, any converted excess sick time will be forfeited, which basically is the policy now. If an employee leaves, they cannot take their sick time with them. So I think there was an increase on the original that was talked about back July 19th, and some of this was discussed by some of the council members and myself, and also discussed some with April to try and come up with something that was a little more friendly to the employee. It will simplify the leave policy instead of having floating and holiday and sick time and vacation time. It would all go into the PTO as far as vacation, and they would earn from day one. currently, an employee starts, no matter what date they start, they don't receive any vacation time until they're with the city 12 full months. So this would allow them to earn approximately 1 day every, it's not quite 1 day per pay period, so it's a little more day every month. So they could, if they don't use any, they would accrue a minimum of 96 hours for a newer employee, an employee. Sam and Jordan, they've been with the city for 15 years or something like that. Sam has, and so has Bobby. Jordan's been, I think, 7 years. Their rate would be, earning rate would be a little higher to compensate for the longevity of someone, you know, dedicating to the city and staying with the city for a longer period of time. So it would be kind of a reward for those. Any questions from the council in reference to the change in these hours?
Mayor, I got a question. You said holidays. Does this include holidays? Or-
No, you still, there's 11 or 10 plus their floater, they would still get that. But, you know, currently there's holiday pay, there's a floating holiday, there's sick time, and there's vacation time. And this would kind of simplify it to where you have holiday or you have PTO. And if an employee has a situation at home, they don't have to call and try to act like they're sick. They just say, you know, I need to take some PTO, and, you know, it's no questions asked. Now, if an individual takes off 3 days or more of PTO and it's not scheduled like you would schedule a vacation, they would be required to bring in an excuse from the doctor, just like they do now if they're using sick time. But they would still have the same paid holidays. They'd still earn that one floating day, just like they have in the past.
I got a question. There were concerns that were brought up that some employees that were like at a 3-week period of getting vacation now, that they were going to lose time. But what we're looking at is if an employee currently has 3 weeks vacation now, that they're going to get those 15 days in PTO time, but they're not going to lose any vacation time.
No, and if they've earned sick time, that will also roll as long as they're under the cap.
Yeah. And I know, not to put you on the spot, Chief, I know April spoke with you about that. Are you good with this? I mean, do you think it's a fair, because I know you've been here for a while.
Yes, sir, I'm good with it. I just want to make sure that the city employees that's been here a lot longer than me, is, in understanding, they really need to understand what this is really doing, that they're not losing time.
Right.
I think that's
giving
really
them free,
yes.
to use the time that they normally would lose with sick. If they don't use it, then possibly they could lose it. This way they can just use it for anything that they want.
Right, and I think a lot of it's just a misunderstanding on some of the things. I think it could be a good thing, but at the same time, they just have to understand they're not really losing anything. They're actually gonna get paid. You're gonna get paid for the PTO time. So I think that's the big thing, is just a misunderstanding. That's what I like to think. I take it as. But that's my biggest concern, is the employees here is not able to feel like they're losing.
Right.
Actually. But they have dedicated a great deal of time to this thing.
Yes.
I think it also benefits the new hires because they do start to accrue time immediately. So,
Because it's hard. I know if you're a new employee, you're told you don't have any vacation for 12 months. That's tough.
That's a long time. Yes, sir.
you take leave without pay, you know, which nowadays leave without pay hurts a whole lot more than it used to. It was never any fun to begin with. Any other questions? Okay, next on the agenda is City of Statham personnel policy change. This has to do with bereavement leave This was tabled also July 19, 2022, regular meeting. This is to approve a change to the city's bereavement leave policy in the personnel policy handbook on page 78. The new policy states full-time employees shall be eligible for bereavement leave after 90 days of employment. A total of 10 days of paid bereavement leave shall be granted per calendar year to an employee in the event of a death of an employee's relative. This leave will be paid at the regular employee's rate and will not count towards overtime and will not count toward deferred compensation. Relatives defined as spouse, parent or step-parent, child or stepchild, sibling, such as brother, sister, and 10 days are unpaid unless PTO is used by, I skipped the line. Bereavement hours that exceed 10 days are unpaid unless PTO is used by the employee. There is no accumulation of bereavement leave and no payment upon separation from the city employment. And as it is right now in the handbook, basically it's saying there's 3 days. We've had a couple of employees who suffered a loss of 2 or more family members, and so, they were paid for 3 of those days, and the rest they had to take vacation. And if you're laying a loved one to rest, it's not what you want to use vacation for. So I think it's an improvement over what was in personnel handbook, and again, I think this is a way of retaining good employees with a little bit better benefits. Any questions from council in reference to the 10-day leave? Any other questions? Okay. Number 3 is Barrow County Water Purchase Contract Proposal. This was tabled on July 19, 2022, regular meeting to approve a wholesale water purchase agreement with Barrow County. I just received this around 8:30 something this morning, so I put a hard copy for everyone, and I sent an email out. The original agreement with the county was a 10-year ironclad contract. Pay whether you use it or not. There were no outs. Was discussed by the council. That basically gave me the authority to work with the county and see if we can improve those some of the guidelines and the amount of water was 150,000 gallons per day, whether we used it or not. And since the city is entertaining trying to research to get our own water supplies, 10-year agreement, if we were able to reach our goal in 5, we're going to pay this agreement for the next 5 after that. So they did, in this new verbiage, they did a 5-year out that the city could exercise with, I believe it's a 90-day written notice. And they also allow an 8-year out with a 90-day. And then, of course, the life of the contract would be an additional, so it would be 5, 3, and 2. The dollar amount is still the same, $3 per 1,000 gallons. This is far better than what we were currently. We are paying the county is right around $5.18 per 1,000. Now, they did change it from 150,000 to 125,000, so they dropped that. They also, took out the clause where they could cap us at 150,000 gallons, per day. They changed that and added verbiage that basically says that if under prevailing drought conditions, any partners that are involved with the county would all be, for lack of better words, throttled back at equal percentage. So, and of course, if we're in a drought condition, then generally everybody issues a no water your lawn, no car wash, and so on. So it's a lot better agreement. Like I said, it gives a 5 and a 3 and then a 2 out, and it takes that cap away. So pretty much everything the council had asked for me to talk to them about. And so you all have a copy of it. You have it in an email and you have a hard copy. Definitely a better agreement. And if we were to pursue water, which again, I have had a study done by EMI, which is our engineering group, about the lake, and I provided that to everyone, and also a hard copy. And that gives the city about 5 different options, and they to a $4 million expense with a special GAC filter system. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, there's about seven options that they gave the city. So the council members would, take those 2. And I know we've been considering drilling another well or 2, but realistically, from start to finish, to produce water, minimum of 2 years, to a little more than that. So feasibly, in 5 years, the city could drill 2 wells. The ultimate would be 60 gallons per minute, but that makes it more cost effective for the treatment process. But one of the options was to blend water from the lake and well. One was blend water from the county and the lake. So there's quite a bit of literature, and I apologize, but like I said, the agreement from the county I got this morning, and yesterday the EMI came in the mail. So,
Mayor, I got a question. I just want to make sure I understand correctly. It's $3 per 1,000 gallons.
yes,
And then if we go over 3.75 million gallons per month, the rate drops to $2.90 per 1,000 gallons. Is that right?
drops to $2.90 per 1,000. Yes, and if you figure it up, I think that's based on, to get to that amount, it would be 150,000 a day.
And we have the option of getting out of the contract in 5 years, just 90 days.
If we decide after the 5 years to keep it, we can still opt out at the 8th year.
Yeah, we got 3 more years, so we're not locked in. Like I said, the first contract was a 10-year ironclad, not to be snide, but it was basically a take it or leave it. So this is a much better negotiation. So. Any other questions?
Is there a possibility that we could have EMI come and do a presentation for the council on everything that they have have come up with?
I think the report is pretty detailed, if you take a look at it. I think there's one in your end basket, and there should be one in your email. It's pretty in-depth, and if that's not sufficient, I'd be glad to reach out to them, but with anything, there comes a price. This report that they put together and the research was just under $5,000, $49.70 to be exact. I'm sure they would entertain it, but I would ask that you would take a look at the report and then ask the questions, and if we need, I'm sure they would come and do that.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Next on the agenda is a ordinance O-22-04, wine tasting event ordinance. This is the first reading. This would amend the code of the city of Statham, Chapter 4, alcohol, Article 6, retail package sales, to add Section 4-163. Counselor, that requires any?
Sure, Mayor. This ordinance came about at the request of Nico's Wine Bar, who we just approved the alcohol and business license for. Their business model provides for wine tasting, wine-related events. That's their business model. They've had a lot of success down in Snellville, but there is no ability under our existing ordinances to have such events. You basically have to get a pouring license. And so at the request of the business owner and with the mayor in April, they asked me to take a look at neighboring jurisdictions to see if we could find a wine event, a wine tasting event that would provide so that these business owners can engage in those types of activities in order to generate business. So this ordinance is modeled after a couple of different locations, including Snellville, where their existing establishment is located. I also looked at Lawrenceville, Duluth, Athens, a couple other jurisdictions, but those were the big ones. So we pulled what we thought were the best practices from them and incorporated them into this ordinance. I'm happy to answer any specific questions y'all may have.
I did notice that there are in Article 6, Section 4-163, paragraph A, where there's like 3 different restrictions. One is no more than 30 people at a time, one time in a calendar month, and it not last longer than 2 hours. There again, that's for public safety.
There's also restrictions on the amount that can be poured.
I was going to actually ask about that. Is that a norm? Are we looking at by the glass pouring here, or are we looking at specific events? Because limiting by the glass, pouring by the glass to one time, I know it says events. So our classes shall be restricted to not more than 30 people at a time, may be held up at one time in a calendar month, and shall not last longer than 2 hours. That's very restricted. We're looking at hey, come in and taste wine. To do it one time a month, whenever I can go to the Mexican restaurant and get liquored up all day long off margaritas. So, that's just.
The distinction is that technically they're a package store. So what we're trying to avoid is basically the creation of bars through like a backdoor to creating a bar through a retail package license. This is kind of standard fare for this particular business model, and like I said, these are the restrictions that we found in all the neighboring jurisdictions. The idea is you're not supposed to drink on site at a package store. Restaurants are different. There's a food component to it. it's just an entirely different business model. That being said, I mean, these can of course be changed. We can make it less restrictive, but these are getting to allow for those types of wine tasting events so that customers can sample the products, but we don't want them having it every single day and it turn into a de facto bar.
I believe it has to have its own entrance as well.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot, you can't enter the classroom, so to speak, from the bottle store and walk in. There's a separate street entrance, so it's a one in and out. So they control the number of people and keep the regulations intact. Are there other questions from council?
Is there a timeframe on when this needs to be approved?
No.
So,
Like I said, there's one business owner that is wanting to open and wanting to know that when they open, they can have these types of events. If you recall, during that particular application, several of their regular customers who partake in those wine tasting events, and they are monthly, down in Snellville, were here. There were pictures of those types of events. So, again, I think it's an important part of the Nico's business model. So I'm pretty sure that they're holding to make sure that this is going to be something they can continue to do here at Statham. So that's the only time pressure that we have. There's no urgency from the city's perspective. This is just, again, trying to be responsive to a business owner that has a particular business practice that is currently not allowed. We want to try to be as business friendly as possible, within reason of public safety.
Gary, just so you know, they do that at Triple Creek and Winder, and, they have several tasting rooms there, so.
Yeah, my question wasn't really about the tasting rooms. I go to wineries all the time, and, you know,
Yeah.
we can taste, 5 or 6 different types of wine, and, any day of the week, and that was kind of what was throwing me on this. But I also understand you don't want a bar either, right there on Highway 211, so.
Any other questions? Okay. Next on the agenda is Police Department lease agreement. This would be to approve a lease agreement with Casto Brothers LLC for the lease of the State Police Department located at 1910 C Railroad Street, Statham. The new lease agreement shows an increase in lease amount from $1,600 per month to $1,850 per month, with an increase beginning October 1, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. This increase may require a budget amendment because we did not get this in time to get this on the new budget. And as you can see on your packet, I sent this over to Attorney Campbell, and he went through and he made some changes which are in a different color, and changed some of the verbiage. I believe this has been presented back to them. I have not heard anything one way or the other. I don't expect it to be a problem.
Mayor, if I may, there's a lot of red on that version, so if you want me just to quickly summarize the changes that we made. So the changes that were made were to adjust the lease period and also adjust both the ability of the landlord to increase rent on us, both from an amount perspective, it puts a 2% per annum cap on it. And number two, they have to give us a certain amount of notice ahead of time of a rent increase so that we don't have the same situation occur again. We will know if any rent increases will happen prior to the budgeting process. So the council will know going in. So those are the major substantive changes, and all the others is mainly just deleting duplicative stuff.
Now, I see this one ends June 30th. I understand because July 1st, we enter a new fiscal year. That's the reason now. But as far as now, is there no contract we're under right now with them? Or that's kind of an odd date, October 1st.
There is, but it's on a month-to-month basis. And so the reason why we put October 1st is, again, assuming back and forth negotiations, we probably get finalized come October 1. But yeah, there is currently a written agreement that they have the ability to do exactly what they demand, is increase rent.
Okay.
Otherwise, they can terminate us 30 days notice.
Questions? Other questions?
We didn't expect this when we did budgets, right?
No.
So we'll have to make an amendment.
More than likely we will, because it's $250 a month and even 10 months, probably put a hole in your armor. So, no other questions at this point. Okay. So, at this point, is there anyone that signed up for citizen input?
Yes, Mayor, Ms. Betty Love. I'm happy to be signed there.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for the room. It's hot in here. I think it's set for 68. It's just not doing it. And these lights make it even worse.
Okay, I'm Betty Law, 277 2nd Street, and I'm here to talk about the festival. It's about 6 weeks off. So far, I have filled up over 120 spots. We've got people that's coming in here from out of state and everywhere. Last week, I came through City Hall and was given a letter from the mayor stating that if we remain like we have been, that we will pick up the tabs. Anybody that works, including the police department, a city worker, we pay for the porta potties. I met with the chief and Officer Hood. They did some math and we talked about it, and the price that they gave me that it would cost for them working from about 8 o'clock that morning until after the street dance that night was more than we would take in and clear. I understand where the mayor's coming from in one sense. The other, I don't. I don't understand why he waited until the festival is right around the corner and throw that at us. So I have 2 options. I can pay these people out of what we take in, which it won't be enough, or I can cancel it. And I don't want to cancel. It's the best day that the businesses have. Last year, they sold out of food. They look forward to it. The citizens look forward to it. It is not fair that this gets thrown at us in the last minute, what we've got to do. We can turn over everything to the city, but if we turn over everything, and then I come back the next week and need $5, am I gonna have to go through an act of Congress to get it? No, I'm not turning it over. I am not going to be walked on like this at the last minute. So, I've got until Monday to have come up with some kind of plan that we cancel. It'll take me a while, but I can return everybody's money and their applications with a note and let them know why. Or we can go forward. And what I would like to ask of you council is to put a moratorium on this until the end of the year. Let us get through this sunflower. Let the Halloween committee get through theirs. And at the first of the year, we all come together and we talk about this. And I don't think I'm asking too much, because I give of my time freely. I use my car, my gas, I go pick up stuff, I put the signs out. And some of the things that we do with that festival, we are known to put out 250 food boxes. We have gone and bought toys for 97 children at Christmas. We help with the Christmas thing by doing cookies and hot chocolate. We used to hire a Santa Claus. We have a food truck that comes in and we give out big boxes of food. We have built a ramp for a guy that broke his legs. There's no way he could get in and out of the house. A guy volunteered his labor on a Sunday. We paid him and paid for the material. If some of the families get burned out, we contribute to that. We put over $10,000 in this little park out here and did the work ourselves. All these benches that y'all see sitting around town, the festival bought that. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we gave the beautification committee $400 to buy mulch. We've given to Shop with a Cop. I did the other week, took a bunch of school supplies for the police department to put in adventure bags. We buy Halloween candy. We contribute to all of it. I think I have been handed a dirty deal. So council, what y'all gonna do about it? Did y'all get a copy of the letter?
Yeah, we did, yes, we did.
And what, I met with the mayor on Tuesday. I met with the mayor also this morning. And what I didn't understand was why the Lions Club and the Spring Fest didn't get it. The mayor says they did, but what you did was copied a few of them. You didn't say they was gonna have to fall under these rules.
Everybody follows this. The difference is, the Lions have a 450 whatever, and that money is designated. But there's accountability, but they've partnered with the city. And that's what I said to you in our 2 meetings.
But
Now,
if I partner with the
the
city,
difference
then I'm
is-
gonna have to answer to you or somebody sitting in this office that don't know one thing about what I'm out there doing, and I'm not gonna waste my time doing that.
And what else did I say? It's all about accountability.
We've accounted to the city for anything that you have ever asked.
So,
I have attended every meeting that we have had. And like I said to you, Mayor, and I don't wanna make this an ugly thing, you're not mad with Sunflower. You're mad with the other committees because they pulled out and they meet on front porches. And you can't control them. Well, they don't have anything to do with what I do and the Sunflower Committee.
Mayor, that's 5 minutes.
okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
What was the price that you were giving?
By the police department.
Yes.
Michael, you want the chief, one?
You remember price? What we did, we took each officer, what they make an hour, salary, and we get paid 85.6 hours. So once they reach that 40-hour mark, anything, so the stuff was on Saturday, that'll be time and a half, so the officer making $20.45, time and a half. That's,
By the time we said and done, including the public works, porta potties and everything, it was almost 10 grand.
Yes, that's correct.
How many officers?
11, and 2 of us are salaried that don't get paid for it. Well, 3 of us are salaried that don't get paid for it.
Do they need 11 officers there?
And from my point of view, I'm gonna say yes, of course. And my thing is safety, and that's my number one responsibility while I'm there, is safety. Will you be taking a chance? I guess you would be taking a chance with 11 officers. Anything gonna happen is gonna happen anyway. But I prefer to have the 12 or 11 officers there, because we got something going on there, cardiac arrest. We respond for CPR. If you look around, you have active shooters and stuff like that. It would be nice to have those extra hands there. And if you don't have enough officers, that's the first thing you're gonna get hit with. Why you have such less security when you have these amount of officers. So I guess it's
On as far as having to pay for the police presence there, was the city reimbursed for the July 4th overtime that y'all put in?
no.
Okay. Is there a reason why?
And as I explained, and you can attest to this, the city holds the tab and pays out, and monies are raised, but the feeling is it doesn't belong to the city. Well, in essence, it really does, because the citizens are part of those events, okay? And so, if the city puts up $5,000 seed money, and there's $15,000 raised, the money that the city puts in is the $5,000, plus the police, plus the porta potties, plus if we have one guy that works, last year at Sunflower Festival, he worked 12 and a half hours on overtime. The city picked up that tab, okay? So all the expenses comes out of the citizens' money, and I am responsible for the citizens' money. That's what they put us in office for. That's why we have these council meetings. So we are accountable for the citizens' money. We put up the tab, and then if the monies are raised, then everybody walks away with the money that's raised, and the citizens have been left holding the bag for that $5,000 seed money. And I explained this to you.
But I had one citizen walk in here and complain to you about what we do. They are grateful that we do it, because every dime that we make goes back into the community one way or the other. Now, if we was taking the money and just going out here and acting a fool with it, that's one thing. But we're putting it back into the community. We're giving something back to them. And they all appreciate it. But like I said, you're not mad with us, you're mad with the others. And I don't think at the last minute that it's right, that you take it away. And all I'm asking is to have a moratorium until the end of the year and let us get through it, because you didn't give us any notice on this.
You come in and talk to me, we'll sit down and we'll talk. And we'll come up with some kind of an agreement. But it has to be all, or it's none.
Well, that's what I'm asking
You know,
for.
you can't have an entity raising money on their own behalf and then expect the city to pick up. Halloween's coming up,
I know it.
and there's gonna be officers at every corner.
Mhm.
And every year, I have been up with my wife, directing traffic at the busiest intersection. And like you, I give of my time.
Mhm.
I don't expect pay for it. I don't expect somebody to pat me on the back and say, Mayor, I'm really glad that you're here tonight. But all of the footwork is done between Chief and I to get people from the veterans to come up here, people from the reserves to come up here, and to make sure that it's safe for everybody.
And they volunteer
All that
their
expense
time
goes
because
up.
they like the community.
So, and then there's people that say, why don't we have Halloween for the whole city, instead of just one street? So, I don't know, I mean, I'm just saying. All right, so. Yes.
Well, I think that, this hasn't been a problem until very recently. And it's just come up as a problem. Now, I would agree that there probably should be, as far as the festivals go, there probably should be some kind of a permit fee, a number of police officers. I can't argue whether 11 officers is excessive or whether it's not excessive. It seems like a lot of officers to me. $10,000 to run a small festival that brings revenue into the city seemed like an awful lot of money. But there would be no money made. The idea now that all of a sudden you gotta be on this committee and give us all your money and all the accounting of that money, or you're gonna pay $10,000. Does that sound right? It doesn't to me.
And that's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's exactly what we heard here is $10,000.
Based on the email that we saw was basically if you were not part of the city, or you wanted that they had to be in to be able to get police protection, they would have to turn over their money in the bank account.
If you want, what the letter said was if you want to be separate from the city, then you are saying that you will do the liability insurance and you will pay for all of the fees. All I'm saying is you're either partnered with the city and we go on, or you're not.
But you should have said that when we came together in January,
Yeah,
with the
Debbie.
first,
Where's the contracting at?
The
We've
what?
been doing the Sunflower Festival for 20 years.
Mhm.
Okay, and we're just now coming up with this. Why wasn't the police time budgeted? If this is something that the city has always done, then my question is why wasn't this budgeted for all the events and put into the budget this year, or even in the last few years? I don't feel like you can come on an entity because they're a nonprofit organization. They're not an organization that's for profit, like the Chamber of Commerce, but they're a nonprofit organization. And they're not making money. If you brought in Jerry Golden to run the festival, he would charge you to run it. They're not getting paid anything. So, and I understand that the need to charge out for police protection and those other accessories. But to come and put this before the feet of this committee 6 weeks out before the festival is ridiculous. And I don't understand why when we set the budget that this wasn't budgeted in.
Was overtime budgeted in for any of this?
Overtime was budgeted in at an amount of $10,000, but I will say there was nothing budgeted specifically for the festival.
And what do you have left? And we're right now, we're in August. What do you have left?
About $4,500.
Well, my question is, why weren't y'all reimbursed by the July 4th and the spring clean?
Sir, I can't answer that because I don't know. Good question and a fair question. But I do think as a department head, well, I love festivals, I love people, so we need to come up with something. I'm thinking to support this. I need to just plan the budget, in the future budget to come.
I say we need to hold off on this and wait till next year and sit down, and I think.
Let's do rest right now, get through the rest of the year, and we need to sit down at the first of the year and figure it out and set some kind of budget for it.
Yes, ma'am.
And my question to Ms. Lau, how long have you been spearheading this event? Ballpark figure.
about 20 years.
Mayor, why are you just now coming up? And you've been here a little while, a few years. Why are you coming up this year, this short period of time with her? And I know what you're saying.
It's not with her, okay? It's with all the committees
Well,
and accountability. And it's being turned around that it's just me attacking her.
it
The
is.
gentleman in the back also got this email and this letter, and you said that I did not send this out to the Lions. I did. I sent it to
This
my
club had to reimburse the city for the police.
No, they did not.
Can somebody send this?
Again, if you're independent, that's what it is. If
I
you're partnered with the
understand that.
city, that's, it's totally different.
Alliance is independent.
So, yeah,
But Mayor, you've been here, going on 3 years, and you never brought any of this up. And then it's time for the festival to be here, and all this comes up. And I've got over 100 people.
you come in and sit down and talk.
When would you like for me to come in?
I don't
It'll be
think we need
tomorrow,
to sit down and talk, I think we need to come up with a solution for all of this.
Well, I have already
comes
had
back
2
to-
meetings with him.
Well, it comes back to a question for legal counsel, what can we do?
Yeah,
Because, you know, we've got Sunflower Festival coming up, it's not a committee event or a festival event, but we got 2,000 trick-or-treaters about to come up, which evidently, we're not going to possibly have police presence for that, is my understanding from the email I got. And then we got Christmas, which, by the way, the people that raised their money for Halloween gave $400 last year for enchanted events. coming out for Santa
absolutely.
Claus. So what can we do here so that this is crazy, to have, at the last minute, this come up?
So all I can answer is what does the codes and the charter say? Codes and the charter outline that the rules of the committees are can be set by the committees, but the appointments and the operations of the committees. I mean, the mayor makes appointments to the committee. The mayor actually decides the standing committees, and then they make the rules of procedure. When there is a partnership between a nonprofit entity and the city, there does have to be a level of public accountability because public funds are being spent. Now, again, historical practices can be what they are. That doesn't set any kind of binding precedent on the city or on that nonprofit entity. So, at the end of the day, it's ultimately whatever's agreed to between the city and the nonprofit entities that's putting on the festival.
And I understand where the mayor's coming from. I just don't know why at the last minute, when I've taken all these people's money, when they mail in the application, getting ready to put up the signs, we just went and ordered 150 T-shirts. Eddie Jackson went and ordered all his T-shirts for the car show, and we get handed the letter.
Now, when you say city, do you mean mayor or do you mean council?
The mayor is, under the charter, the mayor is the one that has power over the committees. Now, as far as, again, here's the problem. Problem is that we are operating in this kind of nebulous world where there's no agreement, written agreement, as between the city and these nonprofit entities in the partnership. There's no understanding of how the monies are to be split, who's to be responsible for what, and so the old adage in the law, an oral contract isn't worth the paper it's written on. And so the parties have the ability to change it really at any time they want. That's the short answer to the question from a legal perspective. But ultimately, this is something that just the parties sit down and can agree to something. Everybody agrees to live by it. I would strongly recommend that it be reduced to writing in the future. But there's no legal answer to your question, unfortunately.
All right, so my next question then is, when there is no festival and there's really no committee, it's just citizens that are trying to organize themselves, what are the rules on that? Let's say you got 2,000 kids coming for trick-or-treating, it's been coming since 1977 at least.
If there is no committee, or there's no nonprofit entity, then it is a city-run event.
Okay.
And the city sets the parameters, and from a purely auditing perspective, from a governmental compliance perspective, every dollar has to be accounted for somehow. If the city is financing any portion of it, whether it be paying the police overtime, bringing in private, traffic direction, hiring contractors, Santa Claus is buying candy, whatever it may be, every dollar has to be accounted for from purely an auditing perspective. So, and again, in that situation, the charter controls here and the code of ordinances control, and both of those give the mayor the power as far as the appointment of committees, the structure of committees, and whether there's even a standing committee. If it's just a group of volunteers that want to organize, the city can decide whether or not it wants to, be the financial backer of that organization. But understand, if they do that, all money is going to flow through the city accounts. There has to be governmental accountability. And that's not the city's charter, that's the Gold Dome, that's the Department of Community Affairs regulations. That'd be a major red flag on an audit.
I had asked you last year in an email about this, and you said as long as the volunteers are fundraising and it doesn't touch city accounts, there is no problem.
That was before there was any kind of agreement that the city was gonna be financing it. The way it was expressed to me, the way you expressed it to me, is exactly what you just said. Is private citizens doing private fundraising, and that's private matter.
But the city funded police last year,
If the
like
city
they always did.
well, but again, so let's be clear on what we're talking about. How organized are we talking about here? I mean, on special nights like Halloween, from a matter of pure public safety, because they know that there's gonna be increased pedestrian traffic, the city can, of its own volition, the police chief can make the decision I want more officers out there directing traffic, not because there's an organized Halloween festival.
Right.
Or an organized Halloween event, but just from that perspective. So frankly, the looseness of the organization works in your benefit in that regard. But if there's gonna be some kind of organized, event publicized that is a partnership, like it's being described right now, and forget police protection for a second. If there's any other component to it, the city's paying for shirts, if the city's, leasing space, anything like that,
No.
that's something completely different.
There-
Or if you have a separate entity like the Lions Club that is a nonprofit, and there's another partner involved, you got to figure out who's doing what, who's financing what, and what happens with those funds.
I just think it's, sad we're at the point where we're talking about possibility of, last year I believe it was 1,911 kids. And then you add in their family members, and they've been coming out since the 70s that I know of. I've been told that was since before I was born probably. And it's went on for years. And then, all of a sudden we're told that we may not have police presence there, we may not block the roads off if we don't come in and talk and sit down and play nice. And it's just never been an issue before. So I think it's sad that are possibly looking at public safety, which is the reason why we had the roads blocked off originally, and tried to get this halfway organized. And it's looking at being put up as a cut
No.
for whatever reason.
Let me ask a question. Is Halloween an event?
Halloween is not an event, it's a
It's
holiday.
not an event.
It's a holiday.
It's an event on Broad Street. It is an
It's a
event.
holiday.
It's a
Light
holiday.
up
Just
night
like
is an
Christmas.
event, okay? We have an event
If it's an
committee.
event, it's a charity
We,
event.
we,
It's a holiday. It's just like Christmas.
Like 4th of July. Like
Kids,
4th of
No.
July.
kids are
It's
gonna be
an
coming to Broad
it's an
Street
event.
regardless.
It's an event that costs money. It is. You can argue all day
That
long,
goes on
but it
every
is.
31st everywhere. It
It-
is not organized by a city or council, it
But
goes on all the time. It's not-
every other city
I've
is
had
open
I've
to
trick-or-treated.
go anywhere in the
I've
city.
trick-or-treated since
Only in
the
Statham, we
70s.
close
No,
off
we do,
3
you
blocks.
love to interrupt. You
Okay.
love to interrupt and speak over someone.
Here-
Remember when
Going on
Statham is a top 10 destination in the state
Trick-or-treating.
for trick or treating.
I don't doubt it.
I don't care, if that's our place, trying to fix it. To me, we're nitpicking ourselves to death with the charter and with our attorney here, we're nitpicking everything to death and just ruining this town.
No.
My question is.
Yeah.
why
We
would-
have every-
More things than mayor does.
every
Yeah,
single-
You do not tell anything to your council. I can
Every
bring up a
single,
number of things that you have not shared with them.
every
That you
single
keep to
month,
yourself.
we have a committee meeting for events.
You get to share
Betty
your
is the only one that comes, that the Sunflower event is under that. The Light Up Night is under that. We had an Easter egg hunt that was under that. We had a Spring Fest that was under that umbrella. We had the 4th of July. We had 6 events planned this year. Now,
Those are all perks for our citizens.
yes,
We
they
don't
are.
mind picking up some cash for
And
that.
so the event committee can plan all of those, okay? An individual does not do the planning. But what you're saying is that it's okay to raise money and put it into a bin somewhere, but the city should be expected to pick up all the expenses.
No,
And all I'm
they did not
saying
pick up
is,
the tab for
the events committee meets, and it will be next.
They are not
Next
picking up the
week.
tab, they pay for their expenses,
So-
they're just asking the city to provide police protection and porta potties. Give me a break, I'm sure Athens and all these other places do that.
Can't change the rules of the game at halftime.
Can I speak?
Yeah,
Because I
Mayor, for the sake of other citizens that have to speak, we well exceed the 5 minutes.
She got more.
I've been practicing, so if I'm over 5 minutes, you cannot stop me tonight. But I did practice. But I am gonna.
I haven't started yet.
Okay, no, okay. First of all, let me say something. No matter what, we are a community. And I think what's happening, this is becoming more personal. And it's a shame. It is absolute shame. Because it is something that we give to the community. We give to the children. And the way I feel, and I'm sorry I'm emotional, is we are taking away from the citizens, the old, the young, because of personal agendas. Not by one, but by all, in some form or fashion. If we keep on attacking and not communicating, we're going to get zero. So let's think about what we want and how can we achieve it. Go ahead and start.
Oh,
I am here.
started already.
Okay, I am here tonight to speak on the concern about the email. Okay, the email states, over the past 2.5 years, the committee of the city of Statham has offered valid recommendations to the mayor and council and have provided certain benefits to our citizens. However, these same committees have steadily moved towards their own independence by not adhering to policies and procedures. That's what mayor is talking about. But if people don't want to be on a committee, it's okay. As a mayor, I understand historically this city was run this way, this is the way we run it and always have done it mindset. This mindset was apparent in departments, employees, and elected officials when I took office. Whereas we continuously put effort at overcoming the mindset, I believe a small part remains today. Please understand, a city-supported event includes any event that receives any type of public funding from the city budget, which includes the cost of staff, organizing, setup, takedown, remove, monitor, police, and otherwise. In an event, and a committee chooses to go independent and develop their own meetings, bank accounts, funds, make purchases, and/or agreements, they are immediately and officially an independent activity. I don't know where that came from. And we will receive no public funding or staff, and all expenses will be sole on that entity. Additionally, any independent activity will be required to give proof of liability insurance, pay overtime for staff, meaning police officers and public workers, and they will fill out a form. If a scheduled event, such as a Halloween festival, Halloween is not a festival. Halloween is not an event. Halloween is not an event that any one person or group of people put on. Halloween is a celebration that goes back over 2,000 years, came to America in 1840, and has been around Statham for a long time, but the last 40 years has continued to grow. Last year, over 4,000 people, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and those scary little trick-or-treaters who marched into the city of Statham. That is a lot of people, and that's actually a low count. One of the first things me and my husband were told when we moved to Statham was be prepared for Halloween if you live on Broad Street. I did not bring Halloween to Broad Street. It was way before. We were informed that yes it is, thousands come out for 4 hours of trick-or-treaters. I call it the HOAB of living on Broad Street. I do not mind it, but the cost of candy is a big deal, but we love to do it. There are citizens who live on Broad Street and other streets that are trying to organize to community, to inform the community, especially we have so many new people, to prepare for large crowds, and we help to offset other citizens who cannot afford candy. How do we do this? We do it by private funded fundraisers. It is our money. It is what we do to help each other. Last year, through private funding, we purchased candy, decorations, flyers, banners, and we gave $400 to the city of Statham for enchanted events for Christmas. These citizens gave up their own money. No public funds were used. If the city decided to, because Halloween just shows up, if they decide to let the police monitor it, the city is making that decision, not citizens. In 2017, a mother and child were hit while walking on Jefferson and Railroad Street. Safety is also a big deal. That is what I'm addressing tonight. This email states, as a private citizens who gather, it is called an independent committee or an independent activity, and therefore will pay staffing overtime to include police officers, public works, provide liability insurance, and fill out applications. This is the word. Instead of questioning our private affairs, perhaps a thank you would be better suited. The city of Statham has for over 30 years provided police presence for Halloween. In reviewing the City of Statham Muni Code, I cannot find the reference or definition to dependent committees, independent committees, and independent activities. I do not understand how or who deemed to call private citizens who gather at their private homes discussing private matters as an independent committee or independent activity, and therefore will receive no public funds or support in which their tax dollars are already paying for. Once again, Halloween is not a festival. It is if you decorate and give free candy, they will come. So what I am asking tonight, Mayor Piper, is the city going to provide police presence and road closure for Halloween 2022 out of the city budget? We do the cleanup. People leave candy wrappers. The next day, these citizens. You say it is on Broad Street, and therefore Broad Street is responsible. It is not. No one mapped it out on Broad Street. The people just chose. I went to some people who have lived here for a very long time, and they said it happened on Broad Street because that's where most of the houses were at the time. And it continued that way. How can you hold accountability for some people who don't want to be on the committee, but they do want to do the right thing in helping their neighbors? It is going to happen unless you are going to cancel it and give notice to, I don't know, roadblock every road coming into the city and say no more Halloween. I cannot understand this concept. But when you make something personal, someone will lose out. And that's what I believe this is. And it's a shame. It is really a shame. People work towards helping each other. Miss Betty helps. The Sunflower Festival gives and gives and gives. You were at the food truck, when you were giving out food. I always think that's a good feeling. They raise the money, they give. I don't know what the answer is here, but to have people pay for something they shouldn't have to pay, because we're already paying tax dollars. I believe, like Miss Betty, this needs to be tabled. And not you, Mayor, meet with one by one. It is the council coming together with you, making a decision. Even though the charter says you can make certain decisions, it is affecting the council. It is affecting the citizens. It is not going to an office and one by one. It is bringing it out and making it right. That's what we have to do. And if the charter says otherwise, then that charter needs to be looked at and needs to be changed.
There you go.
Mayor, that's all signed up.
Kurt Bogenreiter.
Wow, that's a very good segue, Cheryl. Thank you very much.
I think this evening is kind of going to give what I have to propose and what I have to say a little bit more punch. I'm here on behalf of the 120-plus citizens of Statham who signed a recall petition to recall Mayor Piper from his position as mayor. I am requesting formally this evening his immediate resignation. I didn't want to do this. I supported him. But He ran on a platform of transparency, and I don't think you're getting it. I know I'm not. He's a poor manager of people,
Please address the.
poor manager of money. He's a poor manager of this city.
Please address
This
the
man-
council.
It's come to light, I don't know if you all know this, during this recall petition, Mr. Dwight McCormick, who heroically gathered all those signatures, was able to find out that, among other things, our mayor, our current mayor, who's managing our finances, has gone under federal bankruptcy, not once, not twice, not 3 times,
Don't make it personal.
4 times.
Don't make it personal.
4 times. It's not personal.
It is.
I'm giving basis for why you should immediately step down as mayor of Statham. And me, as a taxpayer, not once, but 4 times, I demand it. I can give numerous examples. You have alienated this whole city council. You have a contentious relationship with everyone on the city council. You have a contentious relationship with former members of the city council. You have a contentious relationship with the police department. You are a poor manager, a very poor manager. And I am calling for your resignation tonight. And I will call for it at every single city council meeting that I attend. You are unqualified. You are the most unqualified person possible for this position as mayor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dwight McCormick.
Mayor, I'm here to speak about the recent changes that you've made for the committees and the festivals that we have here. I know it's already been beat to death. I would just like to point out to the council that because of the legal issue and the need for the city to be reimbursed, I couldn't see a better opportunity for a moratorium than this right here. You cannot change the rules of the game at halftime and expect to get a winning result. I don't know what precipitated this decision. I have an idea, but I'll keep that to myself. But you change the rules of the game and expect a good result. So I would ask Council Campbell to look into what it would take to get a moratorium for our festivals, events, and committees that serve our community. It's already been said, but I think it's very important to protect. And I think the length of the moratorium could go to the end of the year. And then you can, if you want this money, if you want the money that it takes to fund the police department, and if you want the money and the accountability, put it in the budget. You just talked about the accountability, and I'm talking about it right now. You can't talk about accountability right after you start a new budget year. So I believe the moratorium should go at least to the end of the year, maybe for the next 16 months. Because this council we're not going to have any productivity out of this mayor and council. It's going to be the council fighting what the mayor does on a constant daily basis. That's real unfortunate. That's terrible. We're not going to grow any until we have a change of the guard. And it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. So I think it should be on the agenda for the next council meeting to put the moratorium in place, protect our community, our volunteers, and the 2 biggest events in Barrow County are right here in the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all we have signed up.
I have a couple of questions. Where do we go from here? What's the outcome? Are we gonna have police presence? Are we not gonna have police presence?
I think everybody missed the point of being partnered with the city, and they took it all on every other route. And as far as I'm concerned, just leave it the way it is. Make your money, put the money wherever you want. When somebody asks me where it's at, just give me somebody to contact, that's all I ask. So, purpose, but that's what everybody has taken from it, so basically, do whatever.
Well, I personally do.
We don't need a moratorium, we just leave Sunflower Festival do what the Sunflower Festival does. We'll let the people that do the Halloween do what they do, and we will make every effort to protect.
To this, I didn't want to have to bring this up tonight. I really didn't. I always try to work things out without it becoming a public spectacle. But when receiving an email just out of the blue, all of a sudden, when we're just a couple of months out from the busy festival season and the holidays, we had to have answers. So, it's my understanding then that we will have police presence and public safety at Sunflower Festival, Halloween.
I never
event.
intended not to. I never intended not to. Everybody read that letter and everybody took it back from a different aspect, so it's done, okay? It's just done. Leave it alone.
out of the city budget.
Let the dog lie, okay?
So we will have police presence and public
There will
safety.
be everywhere, so we will do whatever we have to do in the city. I will work with the chief like I have in previous years, and we will make the arrangements accordingly, so. We have minutes approval. Everyone got a copy on July the 20th in their email. With any exception or any corrections or any comments on the minutes for July 19, 2022 regular meeting? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Okay.
Mayor, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry.
Motion to adjourn?
We're gonna argue over it. You got it?
Patty got it.
All those in favor? All right. Thank you for coming.
You know that, man, we just scored it. I was gonna say, leave up the money.